Harold is 72 years old. He is a retired postal carrier from Dayton, Ohio, and on the morning of March 4th, his alarm went off at 6:40, the same time it had gone off for 11 years of retirement. He silenced it, threw back the covers, swung his legs over the side of the bed, and stood up. He made it 4 steps toward the bathroom. His wife, Carol, found him on the hallway floor at 6:43, conscious, confused, with a fractured left hip. Here is the part that matters. The night before, Harold had checked his blood pressure at his kitchen table, the way his doctor asked him to. The monitor read 118/76. By almost any standard a doctor would use, that number is excellent. Harold was doing everything right. His medication was filled, his readings were logged, his checkups were current. And a number that looked perfect on Sunday night still put him on the floor Monday morning, because the danger was never in the number. The danger was in a habit Harold repeated every single morning for decades. A habit that millions of American seniors will repeat tomorrow morning without a second thought. In the next 25 minutes, I am going to walk you through exactly what that habit is, the 90-second window in your morning when your cardiovascular system is at its most vulnerable. The 3-stage method for getting out of bed that costs you nothing and takes under 2 minutes. The specific question about your blood pressure medication that a major federal trial of older adults answered, and the simple 2-position measurement you can do at home this week that reveals whether this risk applies to you personally. And I will tell you the one thing about Harold's story that even careful, health-conscious seniors get wrong, because Carol got it wrong too. And it is probably the reason Harold spent 11 days in a hospital instead of 11 minutes feeling dizzy. Here is exactly what you are getting in this video. First, the 90-second window, the specific stretch of your morning when the risk of a fall, a faint, or worse is at its peak, and why your body handles that window differently at 70 than it did at 40. Second, the 3-stage bed exit, a 30-60-30 method that gives your circulation the time it actually needs, which you can start using tomorrow morning. Third, the home test, a lying and standing blood pressure measurement with 2 specific numbers, 20 and 10, that tell you whether you have a condition that affects roughly 1 in 5 adults over 70. Fourth, the medication conversation, including what a large federal trial of adults 65 and older found when researchers asked whether certain blood pressure drug classes raise the risk of falls and fainting. And the exact questions to bring to your doctor. And fifth, the mistake Carol made in the first 60 seconds after she found Harold, a mistake that turns a recoverable episode into a life-changing one. And what to do instead. Before we get into it, a quick word about who I am and why I make these videos. I am not your physician, and nothing in this video is medical advice. I am a health educator, and this channel exists for one reason. The average appointment with a doctor is short, and older adults routinely leave those appointments with a prescription and a number, but without the 20 minutes of explanation that makes the prescription and the number make sense. That explanation is what we do here, built from published research and major medical institutions, with sources named as we go. If this is your first time here, do me a favor and drop your age in the comments below. It genuinely helps me understand who I am talking to. And it helps this video reach the people who need it. Now let me give you the rest of Harold's morning, because the details are where the lesson lives. Harold retired from the Postal Service in 2014 after 31 years of walking a route in southwest Dayton. Walking a route means Harold was never a sedentary man. Even at 72, he walked the neighborhood most mornings, weather permitting, about 1.5 miles. He carried maybe 15 extra pounds, nothing dramatic. He had been on blood pressure medication since his early 60s, a common story, 1 pill every morning with breakfast. And for the last 2 years, his doctor had him logging home readings twice a week. Harold's log was neat. Postal carriers tend to be neat. Sunday evening, March 3rd, he wrote down 118/76, closed the notebook, watched the end of a basketball game, and went to bed around 10:30. At 6:40 Monday morning, the alarm went off, and Harold did what he had done roughly 4,000 mornings in a row since retiring. He sat up fast, pivoted, planted his feet, and stood, all in one motion, the way you do when the habit is older than your grandchildren. He felt the wave hit somewhere around the bedroom door. Carol says he called her name once. He remembers the hallway tilting, a gray curtain coming down over his vision from the top, like a garage door closing. He does not remember the floor. What put him in the hospital was not a heart attack. His heart, structurally, was fine. What put him in the hospital was gravity and a hip that met the hardwood at exactly the wrong angle. 11 days inpatient. A surgical repair. Months of rehabilitation. A walker parked by the bed of a man who used to walk 8 miles a day for a living. And a fear, which anyone who has fallen will tell you is the heaviest part. A fear of his own hallway that has outlasted the fracture itself. When the hospital team reviewed what happened, nobody blamed his heart, and nobody blamed his diet. The event had a name, and the name surprised Harold, because in 12 years of blood pressure appointments, he had never once heard it. The name is orthostatic hypotension, and here is what nobody told Harold in all those appointments. The blood pressure reading you take sitting calmly at your kitchen table, the reading that looks perfect in your log, measures your body at rest in one position. It says almost nothing about what your blood pressure does in the 3 seconds after you stand up. And for older adults, especially older adults on blood pressure medication, those 3 seconds are a completely different physiological event. Harold is not unusual. Harold is typical, and the habit that dropped him, standing up fast in the first minute after waking, is a habit that tens of millions of Americans over 60 will repeat tomorrow, between 6 and 9 in the morning. So let me explain the mechanism in plain language, because once you understand it, you will never get out of bed the same way again. When you lie flat for 7 or 8 hours of sleep, your blood distributes evenly, head to toe, because gravity is not pulling it anywhere in particular. The moment you stand, gravity instantly pulls a significant volume of blood downward into your legs and belly. That blood is, for a moment, not available to your heart, which means it is not available to your brain. A healthy younger body solves this in about a heartbeat. Pressure sensors in your neck and chest, called baroreceptors, detect the drop, and your autonomic nervous system fires off orders. Squeeze the blood vessels, speed up the heart, push the pressure back up. At 40, that reflex is crisp. You stand, the system corrects, you never feel a thing. The problem, and the National Institutes of Health resource Medline Plus describes this in its overview of autonomic disorders, is that this reflex runs on nerves and vessels, and both change with age. The sensors respond more slowly. The vessels are stiffer. The correction that took one heartbeat at 40 can take many seconds at 75, and during those seconds, your brain is quite literally being underpaid. That is the dizziness. That is the graying vision. That is orthostatic hypotension, which the Mayo Clinic defines as a form of low blood pressure triggered specifically by standing up from sitting or lying down. This is not a rare condition. A 2019 review in the journal Cardiologia Polska reported that orthostatic hypotension affects more than 20% of adults over 70 and connected it to essentially every stage of cardiovascular disease. A 2020 review in the journal Autonomic Neuroscience put the prevalence at about 16% among older adults living in the community and up to 60% among older adults in care facilities. 1 in 5 people your age, most of them never told. Now add the second layer, because Harold's fall was not just about standing. It was about standing in the morning. Your blood pressure is not flat across the day. In the hour or two after waking, it climbs sharply, a phenomenon researchers call the morning surge. And that surge has been studied precisely because it is not innocent. A 2023 study in the journal Blood Pressure Monitoring followed over 1,300 patients with hypertension to evaluate the morning surge as a predictor of serious cardiovascular events. The Jackson Heart Study, published in the journal Hypertension in 2020, examined morning surge patterns in relation to cardiovascular events and death from any cause. And a 2020 study in the journal Sleep, looking at middle-aged and older adults, found that the cardiovascular system genuinely struggles to compensate for standing in the moments right after waking. So picture the collision. The morning is when your pressure control system is at its most turbulent, and the first stand of the day is the single hardest thing you ask that system to do. Layer on a blood pressure pill that is doing its job of keeping pressure down. Add 7 hours without a sip of water, which leaves you mildly dehydrated and lowers your blood volume, and you have built, without knowing it, a perfect 90-second window of vulnerability. That is the window Harold walked into at 6:41 in the morning. And that is the open loop from the start of this video, closed. His pressure was fine at the kitchen table Sunday night. It was not fine in the hallway Monday morning, because those are two different tests. And only one of them had ever been measured. Harold is one version of this story. Let me give you 3 more, because this mechanism wears different disguises, and I want you to recognize yours. Dorothy is 68. She lives outside Savannah, Georgia, still works part-time at a fabric store, and takes a diuretic, a water pill, for her blood pressure, along with a medication for her thyroid. Dorothy never fell getting out of bed. Dorothy's episode happened in the shower. Her routine was efficient. Alarm at 6, straight out of bed, straight into a hot shower within 5 minutes of waking. One Tuesday in July, she felt her heart fluttering under the hot water. The bathroom went distant, and she sat down hard on the edge of the tub, hard enough to bruise her tailbone and crack a towel bar on the way down. Here is why. Heat widens your blood vessels. That is what heat does. So Dorothy stacked 3 pressure-lowering forces inside 10 minutes. The overnight fluid loss her water pill amplifies, the first stand of the day, and then a hot shower dilating her vessels exactly when her system was fighting to constrict them. Any one of those she handles. All three, stacked in the morning window, put her on the tub edge. Dorothy did not need a new diagnosis. Dorothy needed 20 minutes between waking and hot water, and a shower chair she now says she should have bought 5 years earlier. Frank is 81, a widower in Mesa, Arizona, a retired machinist. Frank's version did not even wait for morning. Like most men his age, Frank gets up at night to use the bathroom, usually around 3. One night in October, he stood from a dead sleep in the dark and came to on the bedroom carpet with no memory of going down. He was lucky, carpet, not tile, and nothing broken. But understand what 3 in the morning means for this mechanism. Every risk factor from the morning window is present, and then some. He is rising from fully flat. He is at the driest point of his night. He is in the dark, so his balance system has no visual reference to lean on, and he is barely awake, so his reaction time is at its worst. A 2024 review in the Journal of the American Medical Association on falls in community-dwelling older adults lists orthostatic hypotension among the major modifiable fall risk factors, and modifiable is the word I want you to hold on to. Because Frank's fix cost him under $30, and I will give it to you in the action steps. And then there is Margaret, 74, of Rochester, Minnesota. And Margaret is the one I most want you to hear, because Margaret is the careful one. Retired school librarian, takes her readings every morning, logs them in a spiral notebook, brings the notebook to every appointment. Her seated numbers were beautiful. What her notebook could not show is that her pressure told a different story every day, swinging noticeably from one morning to the next, and that her pressure on standing behaved differently than her pressure sitting down. Nobody had ever measured her standing. When a new physician finally did, her systolic number dropped 26 points inside 3 minutes of getting up. That drop had been hiding behind years of perfect seated readings. And this pattern matters beyond dizziness. The Nagahama study, published in 2018 in the American Journal of Hypertension, examined nearly 6,500 community residents and found that the blood pressure decline on standing was associated with greater day-to-day swings in home blood pressure, the kind of variability that is itself a risk factor for cardiovascular outcomes. Margaret was never careless. Margaret was measuring the wrong moment. Patricia, Dorothy, Frank, Margaret. 4 different mornings, 1 mechanism. Now let me give you what to actually do about it. Here is the plan. 5 steps in order of how soon you should do them, starting tomorrow morning. Step 1. Change how you exit the bed, starting with your very next morning. I call it 30-60-30, and it takes under 2 minutes. When you wake, do not sit up. Stay flat for 30 seconds and let yourself actually wake. While you are flat, pump your ankles, point your toes away from you and pull them back 10 or 15 times, and squeeze your thigh muscles a few times. You are using your leg muscles as a second heart, pushing pooled blood back up toward your core before you ever fight gravity. Then sit up slowly and sit on the edge of the bed, feet flat on the floor, for a full 60 seconds. Count it honestly. This is the moment your baroreceptors are doing their slow, aging best, and you are giving them the time the reflex now requires. If you feel any lightheadedness while sitting, you stay seated until it fully passes, no exceptions. Then stand and stand still, one hand on the nightstand or headboard, for 30 more seconds before your first step. Flat 30, sit 60, stand 30. 2 minutes, $0, and it directly diffuses the exact sequence that broke Harold's hip. Step 2. This week, do the 2-position measurement at home. You need your regular arm cuff and a helper if possible. Lie down quietly for 5 minutes, then take a reading while still lying down and write it down. Then stand up and take readings at 1 minute and again at 3 minutes standing. Here are the 2 numbers that matter, and this threshold comes from how institutions like the Mayo Clinic describe the condition. If your top number, the systolic, drops by 20 points or more, or your bottom number, the diastolic, drops by 10 points or more within those 3 minutes of standing, that pattern is consistent with orthostatic hypotension, and it is something your doctor needs to see. Write down all 3 readings, with times, and bring the paper to your next appointment. Do not diagnose yourself, and do not panic over one odd reading. Hydration, meals, and time of day all move these numbers. What you are doing is gathering the measurement that years of seated readings, like Margaret's beautiful notebook, simply cannot capture. Step 3. Have the medication conversation, and please hear the first part clearly. Do not stop or reduce any blood pressure medication on your own, ever. Untreated high blood pressure is a stroke and heart attack risk, and the answer to this video is never a drawer full of unfinished pills. The answer is a better conversation. And you should walk into that conversation knowing about one study. Researchers analyzed the All-Hat trial, a major federal blood pressure trial, looking specifically at adults 65 and older, and asked whether the class of blood pressure medication, which type of drug, changed the risk of falls, fainting, and orthostatic hypotension. That analysis was published in the journal Hypotension in 2019. So the question is legitimate enough that federal trial data has been examined to answer it, which means it is legitimate enough for your appointment. Bring your 2-position readings and ask 3 things. 1. Given these numbers, do I have orthostatic hypotension? 2. Could my current medication, or its dose, or the time of day I take it, be contributing? 3. Is there an adjustment that protects my heart and my hallway at the same time? That is a 15-minute appointment used exactly the way it should be. Step 4. Fix your fluids, because overnight dehydration is the quiet accomplice in almost every story I told you today. 7 or 8 hours without water lowers your blood volume, and lower volume means less pressure available exactly when the morning demands more. So put a glass of water on the nightstand tonight, and make drinking it part of your 60 seconds sitting on the edge of the bed. Through the day, keep fluids steady rather than catching up at dinner, which only guarantees more 3 a.m. bathroom trips. If you are on a water pill like Dorothy, or your doctor has you on fluid restrictions for your heart or kidneys, do not freelance this. Ask your doctor what your fluid plan should look like. For most people, though, the morning glass of water may be the cheapest cardiovascular support in the house. Step 5. Redesign the first hour of your morning around the window instead of pretending it is not there. Keep the path from bed to bathroom completely clear. No throw rugs, no charging cables, no slippers waiting to slide. Put a plug-in nightlight in the bedroom and one in the bathroom. That is Frank's $30 fix, so a 3 a.m. trip never happens in the dark. And apply 30-60-30 to night rises too, even when your bladder is arguing. Push the hot shower back. Give yourself 20 or 30 minutes awake and some water before hot water. And if you have ever once felt faint in the shower, get a shower chair and a grab bar. They are tools, not surrender. And let light help you. That 2020 study in the journal Sleep tested artificial dawn light in middle-aged and older adults, precisely because the transition from sleep to standing is such a hard cardiovascular moment. So opening the curtains or using a sunrise alarm that brightens gradually before you rise is a reasonable, gentle way to make waking less abrupt. Both the CDC and the National Institute on Aging maintain entire programs on preventing falls in older adults. And the theme running through that guidance is the same theme running through this list. Falls are not random lightning strikes. They are chains of small, fixable conditions. And every step you just heard removes a link. Now the bonus, and this is the piece Carol needed on March 4th, the mistake I promised to explain. When Harold called her name and went down, Carol did what nearly every loving spouse does. She rushed to him and immediately tried to get him up, pulling him by the arm toward his feet. And Harold, embarrassed the way men of his generation are embarrassed, pushed himself up as fast as he could to prove he was fine. Understand what that does. A person who has just fainted, or nearly fainted, from orthostatic hypotension, has a brain that is still underpaid. Hauling them upright immediately recreates the exact drop that put them down. And the second fall is often the one that does the real damage, because it happens from standing height with no reflexes left to soften it. So here is the rule for your household. If you or your spouse goes down or feels that gray curtain coming, the floor is your friend. Stay down or get down deliberately and wait. Lie flat. Raise the legs on a chair seat or a couch cushion if you can, and give it a few minutes, because flat on the floor, gravity is refilling the brain instead of robbing it. Get up in stages, floor to hands and knees, to kneeling at a chair, to sitting in the chair, to standing, with a full pause at every stage. And 2 hard exceptions. If there is chest pain, a head strike, bleeding, or a limb that will not bear weight, nobody gets up at all. You call 911. And if near fainting is happening repeatedly, that is not a lifestyle project. That is a prompt call to the doctor. A 2017 review in the journal Age and Aging tied orthostatic hypotension in older adults to real increases in illness and death over time. And a 2019 meta-analysis in the Journal of the American Medical Directors Association examined its association with falls. This condition deserves management, not toughness. So let me bring it back to the beginning. Harold's monitor said 118/76, and Harold still ended up on the hallway floor because the reading measured the wrong moment. The most dangerous 90 seconds of an older adult's day is the first stand of the morning, when the surge, the overnight dehydration, the medication, and an aging reflex all arrive at once, and the defense is almost embarrassingly simple. Flat for 30, sit for 60, stand for 30. Water on the nightstand, a 2-position measurement on paper, and a real conversation with your doctor before anything about your medication changes. One more time, because it matters, this video is education, not medical advice, and your own physician, who knows your history and your prescriptions, is the person to make these decisions with. But tomorrow morning, when that alarm goes off, I want you to hear this video before your feet hit the floor. 2 minutes. That is the whole price. If this was worth your time, hit the like button so it reaches more people in the morning window. Subscribe if you want more straight talk about staying strong after 60. And tell me in the comments, honestly, how fast were you getting out of bed until today? I will see you in the next video.